Okay, hi. This is Keith. You know, I don't make a lot of videos, but I was talking. My wife tells me, Keith, you should show your emotions more. And I gave it some thought. And I have to say that I love the Craftsman 2.6 gallon, 2.5 gallon V20 air compressor. Okay? I love this machine. I let her use it, and guess what? She doesn't want to use anything else. So guys, watch your compressors because your wife is going to want to take them, right? Okay, check it out. So, to understand what I usually do, you kind of have to understand how I run. So let's come in here and look at this. This is a typical operation in the most part because everything is run off of this tool trailer. So right now, I'm sitting at 13.8 volts, Shazam, which means that I'm totally and fully charged. Okay, and so far I've only run my saws and things a little bit. Okay, so we're completely on solar power, right? Typically I run the house, but this time the lights are on inside the house, not on the inverter. Everything else is on the inverter. And what it does is that I could run an electric compressor, but using this compressor, it allows me to run a table saw, a miter saw, a floor nailer, and a nail gun. Right? And it doesn't even, it's like nothing on my batteries, right, out there. And disclaimer, I got a lot of batteries, right? But even with that, if I was running a full-size compressor and stuff, it would be more work, okay? So, I got to tell you that if you look at the specifications, this is specified to run a nail gun, okay? But it's not, the specs don't say that you should be running floor nailers, okay? But you can do it. It works 100% just fine. Now, this has a 2.5 gallon tank, which means that it's going to cycle more than your regular, within a 6 gallon tank, right? So it's going to cycle twice as much, okay? But having said that, I mean, it doesn't cost to cycle, right? And the thing that you're concerned about with cycling is if it allows your working pressure to drop, then you could experience a problem there with your nail gun. But with this compressor, we've nailed all this floor and we haven't had any problem with pressure. Okay? So in regards to just the performance itself, it has replaced the 6 gallon Craftsman compressor entirely. Okay? An electric compressor with 120. So now let's talk about the batteries. Okay, now this unit, it doesn't come with a battery. I happen to have the 2 amp hour battery in there. This will not last, right? But when I'm first getting started, I go ahead and charge it up, which will drain the 2 amp hour battery, and then I'll switch to the 4 amp hour battery. Now, we have managed to work 8 and 10 hours using this compressor, right? But if you're going to show up with a 10 amp hour battery just by itself, it's not going to work. Let me show you how we do it. Coming out here. So at the moment, we have our miniature battery bank. Okay? So depending on the application that you have, you want your battery bank to be able to have at least one battery charge before you use the other one. So that means it's not really part of the specification that 2 people are working, even though my daughter and I will both be here working. But if you come equipped with 2 4 amp hour batteries and 2 amp hour batteries, right, and keep them on a continuous charge, you can work continuously for hours and hours on end, right? Now, if we were working at a faster pace, we would want to add more batteries. But at some point, you can't have like a whole team of people working off this compressor, changing batteries every 5 minutes, because it will still exceed the capacity and how long you're supposed to run the compressor to get life out of it, right? But for two people, I found that having these 4 amp hour batteries is enough, right? And for one person, right, sometimes you don't even use the entire 4 amp hour battery in a day, right? But with heavy stuff like laying a floor, right, don't pretend like you're going to come out here with one battery, but you're not. But you can do pretty much as 1 or 2 people can do with this compressor, as long as you're not using high airflow type equipment, such as a paint sprayer, a large paint sprayer, or a drill or something like that. That's not going to happen. But if you want to do floors, nailing, I wouldn't be afraid to go up on the roof. You know, with someone down here, I wouldn't be afraid to go up on the roof. Or even if I went up on the roof and I was doing the roof, I would know that I could take 1 or 2 batteries, and by the time those were dead, I would be down taking a break, swapping them out. Okay, so if you're thinking about, instead of thinking about this thing as something that you're going to face a limited capacity with, right? You also have to understand that it expands the amount of work you can do if it expands the amount of work you can do when you're working off the grid, right? So with this thing, I can really come here and work off the grid all day, and my batteries will be great. Okay, let's have another little talk about the batteries. Okay, so if you're not into electricity, this might throw you, but you have to look it up. This, in a regular compressor, it's a motor. So when it starts, the current rises real high, the kilowatts rise real high, and you need real strong batteries to start. So with an ordinary compressor, you need to have good batteries in your inverter to run it at all times. But because this is the battery, that means that your inverter outside only needs to be able to charge at whatever your charge rate is. So I don't see charging over 200 watts. So with using these battery operated equipment, you can draw your work batteries all the way down from where they are, 13.9 volts. In theory, you could charge them all the way down to 10 volts. But you only want to drain them down to 11 volts, because with lead acid batteries, you have a chance of damaging your batteries. If you have lithium ion batteries or some expensive stuff, then you could drain them all the way down to 10, right? And still have all the starting current you need to start your heavy equipment, right? So in inverter terms, this is for me, this is heavy equipment. A 6-gallon compressor is heavy equipment. Okay, so my review is, I give this, if this thing had 6 stars, I would give it 6 stars, right? But the rule is 5 stars, so I'm going to give it 5 stars. Why? Because it is going to operate beyond the capacity. I've seen it. I'm operating it beyond the capacity listed in the manufacturer's instructions, right? Oh, one other thing. This goes up to 125 psi, right? I'm running it at about 90 psi, right? And it keeps it fine. It'll go up to 125 psi. So if you have high psi applications, such as some tires or whatever, it'll do it, right? Which is pretty good. And I understand that this regulator isn't the most modern, but it still works great. So I would have to give this 5 stars based on the fact that you can operate it beyond the manufacturer's suggestions. The battery usage is great. If you're just one person doing small things, the one battery is going to last you all day. If you have 2 people or 3 people working off of this compressor, right, you can still run it all day and it doesn't present a problem. Okay? And the biggest thing about it is that when you're working off the grid, right, that means that the draw on this is so light that you don't even need to pay for electricity. This will operate off of electricity from the sun. And right now, I'm not even paying for that electricity. Only thing I'm paying for is nothing. The sun is paying for it. Okay? So this is my setup. Right? And 5 stars to the Cha-Chung Craftsman. Great. I wish I could give it 6 stars.